thank you to the town manager and also Madam Chair for giving me a few minutes to speak here. I'm going to go through three slides here to talk a little bit about the Open Space Subcommittee and talk a little bit about how the Open Space Subcommittee follows the Plan of Conservation and Development and identifies and vets opportunities for the community. Each time we get an opportunity, we look at primarily these 6 strategy elements that are outlined in our Plan of Conservation and Development, and we balance whether this particular parcel meets these criteria or not. And so you see, I've put in here the check marks. For example, the first one in the upper left-hand corner. This property meets the standard of public drinking water or water supply and watershed, as it has an aquifer protection zone over most of the parcel. It also has surface water that we want to protect in the form of streams and ponds. It's a critical wildlife habitat. If you've visited this area of town, or if you've had the pleasure of playing golf there, or visiting the restaurant or the venue there, you've probably seen many different animals in the area on the course that people have enjoyed. These animals use this as a space to not only live but also pass through, and not having something like a development there helps provide this opportunity for these animals. Of course, with an active recreation, a golf course, the parcel does have recreational opportunities, and the parcel does have some rich history in town, which I'm going to touch on the next slide, as a farmstead back in the early 1900s and in the 1800s. And then finally, Rob's going to talk a little bit later. We're used to seeing, when you talk about open space, if you will, people oftentimes think of, passive or hiking, but it's also important strategies to have development rights for what's called perceived open spaces. Large open spaces that a community benefits from by not having significant developments, but also can be a use of the community. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the history of this parcel. I'd mentioned that it was a farm. The Horace Webster farmhouse, which still exists today on South End Road, adjacent to the golf course, was part of the entire farm. So that was the farmstead. The Webster family not only owned this building, there was another building close by which was demolished on the same parcel, but also the entire golf course was farmland. In the early 1900s and in 1922, there was an agreement to create a lease. The Webster family, in conjunction with maybe a half a dozen others, formed a committee to bring a golf course, that first a 9-hole golf course, onto this parcel, and they leased the land and they put this first Fieldstone clubhouse, which still houses the primary clubhouse and the restaurant that we know today on site. Today, Southington Country Club is one of 2 golf courses that we have the opportunity to enjoy here in town. Whether it's on this side of town or the other side of town. And we recognize that this golf course is more than just active recreation or playing a sport. There's people who come out and they meet there for meetings. There's people who meet friends there. They meet strangers and they play. There are people who walk up and play with other people that they don't know, just to have an opportunity to play and meet folks. There are people who recreate and come for gatherings such as charity events and weddings, and then regular dinners and lunches, at some regular frequency. So, places like these they become a center, a focal point in your community.
Well, the purchase of development rights programs are one viable approach that state and local governments have to preserve farmland and open space. Purchasing development rights provides a way to financially compensate a willing landowner for not developing their land. When a town purchases development rights, the town obtains a grant of restriction in development rights, which permanently restricts the development on the land. However, the landowner does remain owner of the land and may use it or resell it for whatever restricted use that are on the grant. How do we value the purchase of development rights? Well, the valuation is done by an appraisal. The value of the development rights usually is the difference between the fair market value of the best and biggest use for the property, which on this piece of land would be the subdivision development, which is already approved by the town. So it's the value between that and then the value of the land when the restricted use is put on there. The town hired an appraisal to do the appraisal of the purchase of development rights, and the appraiser came in at $4,700,000. In saying this, we are very grateful to the owners of the Southington Country Club because we were able to work with them and they worked with us to negotiate the purchase of the development rights down to the number of $4.5 million, which is $200,000 less than what the town appraisal came in at.
As with most things we do here in the planning department, we always look to our plan of conservation and development. That plan was updated in 2016. And in the early stages of that update, we had early public outreach meetings, and we had a number of issues that came forward through those public outreach meetings, and participants judged the town open space as one of the top town attributes. In fact, they did rank priorities in that meeting, and open space was ranked as the highest priority goal over natural resource protection, traffic and circulation improvements, and other community facilities and infrastructure. Number one, be proactive in preserving open space. Preserve as much open space as possible, especially as protected or dedicated open space. And I will talk briefly about those types of definitions on the next slide. And as opportunities arise, convert managed and perceived open space into dedicated, protected open space. Now, of the policies in the Plan of Conservation and Development, we also have tools that help us achieve those goals. And one of the tools on page 31 is the purchase of development rights for preservation of open space, farmland, and other purposes. This property has been approved for a subdivision. Here's the approved plan. It shows 114 lots. Our 2025, they're about around a half-acre lot, a half-acre size lot. Obviously, an extensive road network is proposed here as well. And again, it's important to note that this can be constructed, commenced starting tomorrow, as early as tomorrow. In our case here, we're looking at an average of 4 bedrooms per home. Some will be 3, some will be 5, but on average, it would work out to be 4 bedrooms. Obviously, with proposed 114 single-family home lots and the residential multiplier, calculate together should yield an expected, and it could be higher, it could be lower, but an expected 108 public school-age children would be produced from this proposed development. Now, taking the 2019-2020 net current expenditures per pupil, that's literally the amount of money that the local tax base has to spend educating each child in the public school system, of $12,250 times the 108 estimated public school children. We can estimate that the annual education cost for this potential development would be about $1.3 million annually in perpetuity.
To calculate the potential revenue, we see a subdivision such as the one already approved bringing in. We're going to take the total real estate assessment of $297,500, add that to the total motor vehicle assessment of $29,400, and multiply that by the most recent mill rate we have of 30.63 to get a total tax revenue per unit of $10,012. And the calculations further show that that would result in a total tax revenue of $1.141 million for the approved 114 house subdivision.
Adding all of these maintenance costs together over the 20 years yields $841,609. And taking a simple average results in $42,080 per year. Now, this presents a 20-year period, but it is important to note that these costs would continue forevermore and would continue to increase with each passing year.
All right, so to summarize everything you've heard so far, the two options that we have before us right now, the subdivision option with a total tax revenue of $1.141 million, less the local education cost estimates, less the golf course revenue, and less the annualized maintenance costs that Annette just spoke of, would yield a approximately $300,000 deficit for the subdivision development. Obviously, over the 20+ years, this deficit grows. The preservation option, with the average annual bond costs of $284,000, would be relatively stable over the 20 years, and then 20 years that debt service ends, and then it would become a tax positive in perpetuity from that point forward. So taking both of those numbers and finding the difference between the two is about $19,000 in favor of the PDR. Is the property in a public drinking water supply watershed? Yes, we've already shown that. Does the land offer surface water protection, streams, river, pond, lake, wetlands, vernal pools, aquifer areas? Absolutely, we discussed that as well. Does the site contain critical wildlife habitat as identified in the state's natural diversity database? Absolutely. Does the site provide recreational or educational opportunities? All open space does, especially in this case if it is retained as a golf course. Does the site contain important cultural resources? Paul went through that, and certainly it looks as though it satisfies that criteria. Does the site provide strategic green space in highly developed areas? Obviously, this is one of the largest, if one of two, I believe, largest undeveloped residentially zoned properties in the town. So certainly not taking this opportunity right now means that it could potentially be lost forever, and you have less opportunities moving forward.